Welcome to the Made You Think podcast. Yeah. Welcome to the Made You Think podcast. Welcome to the Made You Think podcast.
Welcome back to the Made You Think podcast. I'm your host, Megan Scorp, and I'm excited you're here today. Before we begin, quick reminder. Everything discussed on this podcast comes from personal experiences, observations, and learning and lessons learned along the way. The purpose of this podcast isn't to tell you what to believe. It's to challenge perspectives, spark reflection, and encourage meaningful growth. You don't have to agree with everything I say. In fact, some of the best growth happens when we're willing to consider a different point of view. After all, it's called Made You Think for a reason. So let's jump in. Well, today's topic might step on a few toes, ruffle a few feathers, and have some of you looking around the room hoping nobody else is listening. You might even find yourself saying, I know somebody exactly like that. And if we're being honest, by the end of the episode, you might realize that somebody is staring back at you in the mirror every morning. Don't worry, we're all friends here. So today's question is, are you a servant or a worker? Now, before anybody gets defensive, starts drafting emails, or prepare strongly worded social media posts, take a deep breath. This isn't about labeling people as good or bad. The truth is, most of us are a little bit of both, depending on the situation. You can be a servant at home, a worker at work, or vice versa. You can be a worker in one season of life and a servant in another. The goal isn't to judge. The goal is awareness. Because once you understand your mindset, you can begin to grow beyond it. The world needs workers, and that worker mindset is safe. It protects your time in the short term, but it also keeps you completely replaceable. When layoffs happen, companies don't look at the job description. They look at who in the organization they cannot survive without. See, workers build businesses. Workers keep organizations running. Workers make sure things get done. But the world also needs servants. And a servant mindset shifts your vision from seeing tasks to seeing the whole picture. Servant sees opportunities where others see obstacles. Servants create solutions when others see problems. Servants don't always wait for instructions. They look for others, or they look for ways to make things better. Neither role is unimportant. But understanding the difference can completely change how you lead, how you serve, how you work, and ultimately, how you impact the people around you. And trust me, by the end of this conversation, you may discover that your greatest opportunities aren't hiding in your job title. They're hiding in your mindset. And mindset changes everything. Let's start with that. So before you start trying to figure out which one you are, work with me a little bit more. Let's break this down. You ever walk into a room where something obvious needs attention? There's trash on the floor, or maybe a chair is out of place, or a spill on the counter. Everybody sees it. Everybody notices it. But somehow, everybody walks around it like it's protected by federal law. Nobody touches it. Nobody acknowledges it. They're all waiting. Waiting for somebody else. Waiting for instructions. Waiting for permission. Maybe even waiting for a memo. But they're waiting. And meanwhile, the problem is sitting there going, am I invisible? Can someone see me? Is somebody going to fix me? See, a servant mentality doesn't wait to be told. A servant says, "Hey, I see something that needs fixing." And they handle it. Not because somebody is watching, not because they're getting a bonus, not because their name will be announced, but because they understand ownership. And ownership is powerful. I remember one of the pastors at a church said, "I don't do new members class because when you come in as a member, you expect things. You expect, I pay, you do something for me. Instead, you come here as a friend of the church." And what that means is if there's a light bulb out in the guest bathroom or the girls' bathroom, instead of coming out going, "Hey, hey, hey, there's the light out," you go in there and say, "Hey, does anybody know where the light bulb is? There's a light out in the bathroom so I can fix it." That's the difference between the worker and the servant. See, servant-minded people take responsibility beyond their job description, beyond what they're there for. Worker-minded people often stop at the edge of their assignment, use the typical line, "That's not my job," or "That's not my job description." Now, let's be honest. We've all worked with that person. You know the one. You ask them to help you, and they respond, "That's not my job." They say it so fast you think they practiced it in the mirror. The building could literally be on fire, and they're standing there holding a fire extinguisher saying, technically, flames fall outside of my department. Meanwhile, a servant sees the same fire and says, "Hey, we can figure out who's responsible for this later. Let's stop the building from burning down first." See, that's leadership. That's the initiative. That's the impact. And the funny thing is, servant-minded people often become leaders long before they receive leadership titles. Because leadership isn't a position. Leadership is behavior. Now that's powerful. Did I make you think? Are you reflecting on yourself? Now, while you're reflecting on which one you are, remember, it's possible to be a servant at home and a worker at the job, or vice versa. Remember that. See, organizations promote people they can trust. Families rely on people they can trust. Communities grow because of people they can trust. And trust is built when people know you'll move without constant supervision. Imagine a GPS asking you every 10 seconds, "Are you sure you want me to keep navigating? Are you sure you want me to turn here?" You would throw that whole GPS out the system and hopefully it's not connected to your phone. Why? Because you don't want to be micromanaged in regards to directions. You just want reliability. You want the GPS to know where it needs to go and not question you to make sure this is what you want to do. See, people appreciate reliability. They appreciate initiative. They appreciate people who don't need 20 reminders to do one thing. Am I talking about you? Now let's talk about something uncomfortable. Because sometimes people mistake serving for weakness. They think servants are pushovers. They think servants are people who let others walk all over them. Not true. Not at all. A servant is not weak. A servant is aware. A servant sees needs and chooses contribution. There's strength in that. In fact, some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are servants. Look at people on the usher board or the deacon board. See, because servant requires humility. And humility is harder than pride. Anybody can walk into a room demanding attention. It takes character to walk into a room looking for ways to add value. Are you processing? See, you know who struggles with serving? People who are obsessed with recognition. Always asking if they're doing it right or they're doing it better than someone else. Because servants understand something workers sometimes miss. Not every contribution gets applause. Sometimes you help and nobody notices. Sometimes you solve a problem and nobody says thank you. Sometimes you make life easier for everyone around you, and your reward is more work. Shout out to all the mothers and daddies out there. Being a parent is the most thankless job. It's the most servitude job. Let's be honest. Sometimes being competent feels like winning a contest where the prize is additional responsibilities. You get pregnant, you're like, yay, I have a baby, yay. And you just got more responsibilities. Now you have someone else to feed, someone else to clothe, someone else to teach their ABCs. All of that. Did you think about that? No. But servant-minded people understand that purpose is bigger than praise. We don't get praise for being the mommy and the daddies. But we love being the mommies and the daddies. We love our kids. See, understanding that the impact matters even when the attention doesn't arrive. You see, the people that are addicted to applause stop working when the applause disappears, whereas servants keep showing up. Now, before you start thinking, so you're saying I should do everything? No, absolutely not. No one is asking you to be a doormat. That's not what we're talking about. Being a servant doesn't mean becoming everybody's unpaid assistant. It doesn't mean carrying every burden. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Healthy servants have boundaries. Understand that. Let me say it again. Healthy servants have boundaries. Because if you try to solve every problem on earth, you'll need about 3 extra lifetimes and a prescription for exhaustion. Am I right? See, a servant isn't somebody who does everything. A servant is somebody who notices opportunities to make them better. There's a difference. And honestly, that mindset applies everywhere. At work, at home, in your relationship, in your friendships, and especially in the communities. You ever notice how some people enter relationships asking, what can I get from it? Oh, he's rich. And others enter relationships asking, what can I contribute? What do I bring to the table? See, those relationships look very different. One is transactional, the other is transformational. Did I make you think? Are you reflecting? Servant-minded people create value wherever they go. They don't wait for ideal circumstances. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't wait until somebody formally invites them to care. They just simply show up. And showing up consistently changes lives. Most success isn't spectacular. It's dependable. Think about that. The people who impact us the most are often the people who showed up repeatedly. The teacher who cared. The mentor who listened. The friend who stayed. The parent who sacrificed. The coach who believed in you. Those people serve. And their service creates a lasting influence. Are you one of those people? And you know what's interesting? Workers often focus on tasks, and servants focus on the outcomes. And a worker may ask, what exactly am I required to do? But that servant is going to say, what results are we trying to create? That's why servant-minded people are innovative. They improve systems, they solve problems, and they find better ways because their attention isn't locked on instructions. It's focused on impact. And impact creates opportunities. So let me give you a visual on this because this right here will shift your entire perspective. At least I hope so. Think about a window. A worker walks up to that window and all they see is glass that needs to be cleaned. They're counting the minutes it takes to wipe it down. They're focusing on the friction of the chore. They do exactly what's required and they stop the second the streaks are gone. Now let's look at it as a servant. A servant looks through the window. They aren't even looking at the glass. They're looking at the view on the other side. And they're asking, does the sunlight hitting this room make somebody's morning a little brighter? Does having a clear view inspire the people sitting at these desks? Look at the contract. See, workers see the tool. Servants see the destination. And when you stop focusing on the friction of the task and start focusing on the freedom of the outcome, you stop feeling like a cog in a machine and you start acting like the architect of the room. And let me tell you, organizations don't just promote architects. They can't survive without them. Are you thinking? Are you reflecting? Do you need to rewind it to hear that again? Because if you're looking to grow professionally, personally, spiritually, or even financially, here's a secret. Become valuable. Not loud, not flashy, not impressive, valuable. People remember value. Organizations reward value. Communities need value. Relationships thrive on value. And servant-minded people create value naturally because they're constantly asking, how can I help? And see, the servant mindset doesn't just help others, it transforms. Because every time you focus on contributions instead of entitlement, you grow. Every time you focus on solutions instead of complaints, you grow. Every time you focus on possibilities instead of limitations, you grow. Service develops character. And character opens doors talents cannot. There are talented people everywhere. But dependable people, oh yeah, they're rare. People who care, rare. People who take initiative, rare. People who make things better without even being asked, rare. And rare qualities create remarkable opportunities. I have a friend who does event planning. And she knows without a doubt, if I'm coming, I don't ask her, what does she want me to do? I just start coming in and working. She knows it. She automatically knows you. Because I've added value to her. So maybe that's why servant-minded people often end up leading. Not because they chased authority, but because they earned trust. And I earned her trust. People naturally follow those who consistently serve. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but consistently. And consistency is where influence lies. So today, I want to challenge you. The next time you walk into a situation, ask yourself, Am I waiting for instructions or am I looking for opportunities? Am I focused only on my assignment or am I invested in the outcome? Am I asking what I can get or what I can give? And see, that will shift everything. It changes careers, it changes families, it changes relationships, and it changes communities. And eventually, it changes you. Because servant-minded people don't just improve environments. They become the kind of people every environment needs. Remember, value. And one day, you'll realize something so beautiful. The opportunities you were praying for arrived because you became the person who was ready to receive them. Not because somebody told you what to do, because you learned how to see what needed to be done. So I hope today's conversation challenged you, inspired you, and helped you see life from a different perspective. But don't let it stop there. Take one thought, one lesson, one action, and put it to work this week. Because change doesn't happen when we simply think about it. Change happens when we act on what we've learned. Your future is built by decisions you make today. So thank you for spending time with me on Made You Think podcast. Be sure to subscribe, follow, share this podcast with someone who needs a little inspiration. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Until next time, keep growing, keep questioning, keep believing, and keep becoming the person you're capable of being. I'm your host, Megan Scorp, and this has been Made You Think. See you next episode.